Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Super Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 10 NFL Power Rank. So we'll start off by briefly recapping my rankings Week 9 and what those teams did last week. Last week at number 10, I had the Patriots. They beat the Falcons 24-23. Ninth, I had the Eagles. They were on a bye. Number 8, I had the Bills. They knocked off the Chiefs 28-21. Seventh, I had the Rams. They destroyed the Saints 34-10. Sixth was the Packers. They lost to the Panthers 16-13. Fifth, I had the Seahawks. They dominated the Commanders 38-14. Fourth was the Buccaneers. They're on a bye. Third, I had the Lions. They're upset by the Vikings, losing 27-24. Second, I had the Colts. They also lost as they lost to the Steelers 27-20. And first, I had the Chiefs, and they lost to the Bills by a score of 28-21. But getting into this week's rankings, beginning things at number 10, I've got the Broncos. The Broncos come in at number 10 after they beat the Texans by a score of 18-15. And this wasn't the prettiest win for the Broncos, but they were able to get the win. And it was another comeback win for them, as they were down 15-7 entering the fourth quarter, and then they scored a touchdown to tie and kicked a field goal as time expired to get the win. But the offense for the Broncos, they were okay. They only scored 18 points, although they were playing against one of the best defenses in the NFL. But Bo Nix, he was okay with 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, and the run game was decent with 100 yards on 4.3 yards a carry. And then defensively for the Broncos, they played pretty well. They only allowed 15 points, they were right in the fourth quarter, only allowing 33 total yards, and the defense, they also got 4 sacks. But this wasn't the best performance for the Broncos. It's another comeback win in the fourth quarter, and it's actually their fourth win of the season, where they've been trailing entering the fourth quarter and ended up winning the game. But a good win for the Broncos. They've now won 6 games in a row, and they're 7-2, and I've got them at number 10. Ninth, I have the Patriots. The Patriots then move up a spot to number 9 after they beat the Falcons 24-23. And the Patriots, they also didn't play that well, and they could have lost this game. But they got off to a good start as they were up 21-7 midway through the second quarter. But then they allowed the Falcons to come back, and the Falcons, they scored a touchdown with a little under 5 minutes left, but missed a potential tying extra point. So the Patriots, they were able to hold on for the win. But the offense for the Patriots, they were okay. Drake May was still pretty solid, although he didn't have his best game, as he threw for 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. And the run game was solid for the Patriots with 110 yards and a touchdown, although they weren't very efficient with just 3.3 yards a carry. And then defensively with the Patriots, they were okay, as they allowed 23 points and just over 5 yards per play. But this wasn't their best performance, but they also didn't play their worst game. They were able to be a decent Falcons team, and I've got the Patriots at number 9. Eighth, I have the Lions. The Lions, they fall to number 8 after they lost to the Vikings by a score of 27-24. And this was not a good game for the Lions. The offense didn't really play that well, putting up 24 points, and they could not run the football, as they ran for just 65 yards and a touchdown, while averaging 3.3 yards per carry. Now, they were okay throwing the ball, as Jared Goff finished 25-37 for 284 yards and 2 touchdowns, but it wasn't enough. And the offensive line also did not play well, allowing 5 sacks. And then the defense for the Lions, they also didn't play that well, as they allowed 27 points, and they really struggled to stop the run, as the Vikings ran for 142 yards and nearly 5 yards per carry. But this was not a good game for the Lions. They've now lost 2 of their last 3 games, and I've got the Lions falling to number 8. Seventh, I have the Eagles. So the Eagles, they move up a couple spots to number 7 because a few teams ahead of them lost. And I know some people would want to have the Eagles a little bit higher, but I can definitely understand that. But I just haven't been super impressed with the Eagles this season, and because of that, I've got them here at number 7. But they're on a bye this week. They're currently 6-2 and have the number 1 seed in the NFC. Sixth, I have the Colts. The Colts, they dropped to number 6 after they lost to the Steelers 27-20. And this is a pretty bad game for the Colts. The offense, they tied a season low with just 20 points, and they turned it over 6 times. And all around for the Colts offense, this was not a good game. Daniel Jones had his worst game of the season by far, as he turned it over 5 times with 3 interceptions and 2 lost fumbles. And Jonathan Taylor also didn't run the ball too effectively, with a season low of 45 yards on just 3.3 yards per attempt. And the offensive line for the Colts also didn't play that well, as they allowed 5 sacks. Now, the defense for the Colts, they weren't terrible, but weren't amazing, as they allowed 27 points. But this was not a good game for the Colts, especially offensively. Now, the Colts do have to make sure this isn't the start of a second half collapse, but obviously they traded for Sauce Gardner. They've got the Falcons next week and then the bye week, so I think they should be able to regroup. But after the loss to the Steelers, I've got the Colts at number 6. Fifth, I have the Chiefs. So the Chiefs, they fall a few spots to number 5 after they lost to the Bills 28-21. And this was not a great game for the Chiefs. They fell behind pretty early in this game, and they briefly took the lead, but for the most part, they were always trying to come back in this game. And they almost did it, but ended up falling short. But the offense for the Chiefs, they weren't great. They were held to just 21 points, and Patrick Mahomes did not have a very good game, as he was held to just a 44% completion rate for 250 yards and an interception. And the Chiefs also didn't run the football effectively with just 79 yards, and the offensive line didn't play that well. And then the defense for the Chiefs also wasn't great, as they allowed 28 points and over 400 yards, and they also couldn't get off the field on third down, as they allowed the Bills to convert 7 of their 12 third downs. But it's another regular season loss to the Bills for the Chiefs, and they now fall to 5-4. I do still have them at number 5 because despite only being a game over 500, I still think they're one of the better teams in the NFL. But if you want to have the Chiefs a few spots lower, I can definitely understand it. But I've got the Chiefs at number 5. Fourth, I have the Bills. The Bills then move up to number 4 after they beat the Chiefs by a score of 28-21. And this was a good performance for the Bills. Josh Allen had a great game, throwing for 273 yards and a touchdown while running for another 2 scores. And the Bills, they ran the football effectively, rushing for 141 yards and 3 touchdowns. And 114 of those yards came from James Cook. And tight end Dalton Kincaid also had a nice game as he caught 6 passes for 101 yards and got in the end zone. And he's now had over 100 yards in 2 of his last 3 games. And then defensively for the Bills, they played really well. And that's big for the Bills because their defense coming into this game was kind of a concern because they hadn't played that well. But they had a great game as they held the Chiefs to just 21 points. They picked off Patrick Mahomes late in the fourth quarter, and they also got consistent pressure. But this was a nice win for the Bills. They're once again able to beat the Chiefs in the regular season. Now have to see if they can do that in the playoffs. But after a nice win over the Chiefs, I've got the Bills at number 4. Third, I have the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers then move up a spot to number 3. They're on a bye this week. They're currently 6-2, and in first place in the NFC South. Next week they face the Patriots. Second, I have the Rams. The Rams jump up to number 2 after a dominant 34-10 win over the Saints. And this was another great performance for the Rams. The offense had a great game with 34 points, and Matthew Stafford had another great game, and he might be the midseason MVP. But this week, Stafford threw for 281 yards and 4 touchdowns. And on the year, he now has 21 touchdown passes and just 2 interceptions. And Puka Nacua also had a nice game for the Rams in his return from injury, as he had 7 catches for 95 yards and found the end zone. And the Rams, they also ran the football effectively, rushing for 171 yards. And the defense for the Rams, they're also great. They allowed just 10 points, 224 total yards, and forced 2 turnovers. But this is another good win for the Rams. They've now won 3 in a row, and I've got the Rams at number 2, although I could understand if you want to have them at number 1. But coming in at number 1, I've got the Seahawks. The Seahawks come in at number 1 after they destroyed the Commanders 38-14. And I can understand if you think this is a little bit high for the Seahawks, and I just thought it might be a little bit high, but with the combination of the Seahawks' dominant win and other top teams losing, I did decide to give Seattle this top spot. But they also had a great game. Sam Darnold played really well, completing 21 of his 24 passes for 330 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. And JSN had another huge game, with 8 catches for 129 yards. Now, the run game for the Seahawks wasn't amazing, just 88 yards, but the offense was still great. And then defensively, the Seahawks, they dominated once again, as they allowed just 14 points, forced 2 turnovers, and they got 4 sacks. But this is another great win for the Seahawks, and I've got them at number 1, although I could understand if you want to have them at 2 or 3, but I definitely think they should be top 5. Well, those are my Week 10 NFL Power Rankings. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications. I do my best to post as often as possible, and I will see you in the next video.